Imagine living in a place with stunning scenery, amazing wine, and charming villages. Before you pack your bags though and move to the Finger Lakes, which is the place that I'm talking about, here are 5 reasons why you may not want to do that. What's going on, guys? My name's Anthony Hamilton with the Living in the Finger Lakes team and the channel. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. That being said, as much as I love making these videos on all things Finger Lakes and Rochester living, I'd love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number and that email, it's popping up on the bottom of your screen. I'm the one that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out. Without further ado, we're talking about 5 reasons why you may not want to move to the Finger Lakes. And before you do, make sure you can handle these things, because some of them definitely deter people from moving here. So let's hop right into it. All right, reason number 1 why you may not want to move to the Finger Lakes region is because of the location of the Finger Lakes, kind of right smack dab in the middle of New York State. We're considered upstate / like Western New York, but Western New York would put you all the way, if you went all the way west, it would be like Buffalo. So we're before that, right? It's like right in the middle of the state. So proximity to major cities, you're looking at least like 5 hours to any major city. So whether you're traveling to a major city for business or pleasure, it's going to be a little drive. You know, in fact, a lot of people will fly from Syracuse or Rochester down to New York City or over to Boston, just because, you know, most people don't want to make like that 5 to 7 hour trek. And especially if it's in the wintertime, the snow can make the roads kind of hazardous. And, you know, a lot of people go off the roads, they slide, you know, and it'll take longer because you have to go slower. So definitely keep that in mind. Distance from major cities is a big thing. A lot of people that relocate here to the Finger Lakes region, they're asking, you know, how close are we to any city at all, right? And the reason they're looking for any city, whether it be Syracuse or Albany or Rochester or Buffalo, is really for entertainment options. And so that's going to be number 2, is the Finger Lakes has limited entertainment options. Now, when you get into Canandaigua and you get into CMAC, which is like FLCC, they do concerts, right? There is a concert venue. You go under the shell, and some big names like, you know, Luke Bryan or Luke Combs or Snoop Dogg, Wiz Khalifa, right? Whatever kind of music you're into, they will come here, they'll travel here, and they'll have concerts there, right? But other than that, you're gonna have to go to Darien Lake, which is out toward Buffalo, or you'll have to go to like the Dome in Syracuse, maybe in like Albany or something like that. But otherwise, you'll have to get down to those major cities for real entertainment besides these concerts, right? Now, that being said, Wayne County is now doing the Wayne County Country Music Festival. So if you're into country music, every year it's about to come up, I think in a week or 2. They're setting up for it now. And today is September 20th of 2023. So they're setting up for it now. The Country Music Festival in Wayne County, basically they're invited, this year they're having Riley Green, and then they're having some other smaller country singers over here, but they'll come and it'll be like, I think it's like a couple days or a week long or something like that. And it's all country music, and it's people going and enjoying the concerts and stuff. And it's at this big fairground out in Wayne County. But that's something that is new, that's starting to happen. I think last year or the year before was the first time that they've done that. So when it comes to entertainment and entertainment options, I know when I went out to Denver, there was all sorts of things to do out in Denver, from, you know, those escape rooms to these optical illusion type things where you're walking through kind of like a maze, and there's like these illusions that you go through, or you know, other concerts in the park, like in master plan communities or something like that, right? The Finger Lakes doesn't really have that kind of thing. They have breweries, they have wineries, and they do have live music at those things, right? But then you have the lakes, so you go boating and you go fishing and you do outdoor activities for the most part, right? But then if you want to see a concert, you travel over to FLCC, which is the Finger Lakes Community College. They have that shell and they do the concerts there all summer. Basically every single weekend of the summer, they'll do concerts. Beyond that though, you're looking at small bands that will play at the wineries or breweries. And you're looking at like a kind of a culture of like food and responsible drinking, being like breweries and wineries, right? There's not a huge club scene here. There's not, tons to do like that. So if you're into getting wild and going Miami Beach type thing or Daytona Beach or whatever, like spring breaking, this is not the place for you. That being said, it is kind of for a more, I don't want to say mature audience as, being condescending or anything like that, but it is kind of like for an older audience where like you go and enjoy the time with your friends. You just hang out and, sip on a couple beers or wines or something like that at a brewery or winery, or go out on the boat and have some fun, go tubing or water skiing or wakeboarding, right? Or go hike some trails. Those are kind of the things that you do here. So if you're looking for entertainment options, the Finger Lakes may not be the place for you. Now, number 3 on the list is gonna kind of be a weird one, but it absolutely matters, especially if you're working remote or you do things from home, right? And that's gonna be limited cell reception. Now, a majority of the time, if you're near or in one of like the townships, right, like the city limits of each individual town, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna have cell reception, right? But if you get out into the hills a little bit, if you get in between the lakes, if you get down into the valleys, you're probably gonna lose internet service. And so, this becomes a big deal. Like I know I've done some showings down in Italy Valley, down toward Naples, and on the south side of Canandaigua Lake, as well as over on Keuka Lake and then the south side of Seneca Lake as well. And you lose cell reception. So I'm using GPS to try and find where this house is that I'm going to show, and the maps no longer populate where I'm supposed to go. So then you have to ask somebody or revert back to the old days and have a paper map or something like that, right? So if you're working from home or you're trying to get around or whatever and you don't know where you're going yet, it could be a major inconvenience. Nobody who works from home wants to have to go to a local coffee shop just to be able to get Wi-Fi or decent internet, right? There's some places around here that don't offer internet or cable, and so you could get satellite. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. You could get some other antennas or something like that, but it'll be a little bit more expensive. So make sure that wherever you're moving, make sure you have cell reception and service, or that your property has internet and cable hooked up to it already, and that the internet companies actually go out there, because there are some towns where they don't and they haven't yet. And so if you love living off grid, you love that kind of thing where you're just completely disconnected, I believe everybody likes that to some extent, but if you're cool living that way all the time, it might be the perfect place for you. But if that's not you, you definitely want to reconsider where you're moving to and maybe go closer to a town rather than out in the boonies or, out in the hills or something like that. So just something to keep in mind there. Number 4 may be a little bit more relevant for you if you're relocating here, and that's going to be the cost of housing, and not necessarily the cost of housing, but the competitiveness of the housing market in this area. Now, because it's such a desirable area, people are moving here in masses, right? The housing market is getting very competitive. It's not unlikely to receive anywhere from 5 to 15 or 20 offers on a house. Now, I mentioned housing costs. We're still very well below par for the national average, right? I keep saying it that if you're coming from out west, anywhere out west, all the way from Colorado to California or anywhere in between or, whatever, this is going to be a lot cheaper than where you're coming from. And I say, we're about 2 to 3 years behind the West Coast and some other parts of the country. But the competitiveness here is ultimately what makes buying a house the most difficult thing. You could find a house that you love that's in your budget. Say you're up to $300,000. You find a house that you love listed at $249,900, and there may be enough offers, and one bumps up to $315,000 or $320,000 or $330,000, right? And that prices you out, and now you can't get that house. So these are the things that are happening. So a lot of the time what we advise our buyers to be doing is looking significantly below your max. Something that, see if we can't, if your max is at 300, see if we can't find something that is listed around 200 or maybe like 215. So then when you offer, and there's so many offers, you can escalate up to where you're comfortable being, which, maybe 290 or 300 if that's comfortable for you. But, just because you escalate like that does not mean that your house is not going to be worth that. It 100% will be. If the bank is appraising the house at whatever you're buying it at, assuming you have a mortgage financed loan, right? A financed house or offer, then if the bank is saying it's worth that, then it's worth that, because there's other comparables in the area that support that. So you're not pricing yourself out of neighborhoods. You're not overpaying for houses. I know national media and all your friends and family are going to say, why would you spend that much on a house? It's not worth that, blah, 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 right? Market value is what a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay for the house right now if they had cash, right? And the appraised value is what the bank would pay for that house based on the comparables in the area. So if there's other houses in the area that are selling for that are comparable directly to yours, the one that you're offering on, then it's worth that. Also, you can also ask yourself, how long do I plan to stay here? Do I plan to stay here for 3 years, or do I plan to stay here for 5 to 10 years? Ultimately, that makes a difference in appreciation. So keep those things in mind, and those are conversations that you and I will have when you reach out to us, right? In regards to you moving here. But the competitiveness is something that needs to be talked about, because there likely will be 50 to 75 showings on any given house, assuming it's a decent property, and there's probably going to be anywhere from 5 to 15 offers on that house. So chances of the price escalating up pretty high is going to be high. The chances are going to be high. So make sure we're just looking at houses that afford you a little bit of negotiation room, and we'll be okay. But if you're one of those buyers that you don't want to compete for a house, you don't want to overpay for a house, right? And you completely disregard all the advice I just gave you on how you won't overpay for a house, then maybe moving here may not be for you. And that's just because this is going to happen. I'm telling you right now, it will happen, that you will be offering probably against at least 5 other offers. It's just the fact of the matter right now, and it's the market we're in. The Finger Lakes and Rochester regions have not slowed down, whereas many other parts of the country have slowed down due to increased interest rates or what have you. We're not seeing that here. It's still very competitive. Prices are still increasing, but that's good, because if you get in now, the value of your house is still going to go up, and so you're gonna accrue instant equity, and it's going to be really good for future resale. And last but not least, I feel like this is pulling hairs here, but do not move to the Finger Lakes region if you hate listening to complainers. I will say that people in the Finger Lakes, and more toward the city, so the closer you get to Syracuse or the closer you get to Rochester, you're gonna hear it more. But more often than not, people are complaining about something. And I understand this is anywhere that you go, but I feel like here in Western or upstate New York, there may be a little bit more to complain about, right? Whether that's people complaining about the weather, right? The cold winters, harsh winters, the gloominess, right? Seasonal depression, whatever it is, or the rain, or people complaining about politics because it is 100% a certain way, and if you don't believe in that way, people are complaining about it, or complaining about other people, or complaining about lack of amenities, or complaining about lack of lack of their favorite sports team, or literally complaining. If there's something to complain about, they're going to complain about it here. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are complaining. And, people will complain about living more so in Rochester or close to Rochester, but they'll complain about living in the Finger Lakes for any given reason. And here's the thing, though, is that a majority of the people that complain, they don't hate it that bad where they decide to up and move. If they hated it that bad, if what they were complaining about was truly that terrible, they would up and move. And the fact that they're not tells me that they're just complainers. And it's not that the area actually has issues wrong with it, or maybe they're just inherent issues, being the location of upstate New York, or the politics, or whatever the case is. But it's more so a reflection of the person just being a complainer than it is about anything else. So if you're kind of like me, where you can't stand complainers, even though everyone does it a little bit, but if you can't stand them, then don't move here, because you're gonna get really annoyed, because people will find things to complain about literally every single day, no matter how big or small. And that being said, I understand anywhere that you go, you're going to find complainers. It just happens. That's human nature. But I feel like, and maybe it's a perception that I have because I get so frustrated with people who complain. And so I'm more drawn to recognizing when it happens, but you're going to find it anywhere. And it's just one of those things. If you can avoid it, avoid it. And so if it really grinds your gears that bad, don't move here, because you're going to hear it here, and it's going to be abundant. And I feel like there's more things for people to complain about, and so they do. But that being said, guys, if you got anything from this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. And as much as I love making these videos for you, I would love even more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number and that email, it's popping up on the bottom of your screen. I'm the one that answers those texts, emails, and phone calls. Don't hesitate to reach out. And until the next video, guys, bye-bye.